Live the Dream Media Network, Arizona's premier live podcast studio and online radio.
All right. Good morning, guys. Happy Veterans Day to you, Mike.
Happy Veterans Day. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. We had a guest today. His three children were sick, so he did us a favor and he didn't come in and spread the love here. So
It's just you and I.
it's just you and I again.
Perfect.
Well, you know, I have a feeling we could talk all day about pretty much any topic.
Yeah, as long as we keep the audience, on their feet and engaged.
Right? Do you have any veterans in your family?
Oh, yeah. I've got a cousin who's he's in the Army. I've got a step brother-in-law. He's a Green Beret. My dad was in the Navy. My uncles were in the Army, so quite a bit.
Yeah. I had a couple relatives too. My daughter's uncle was in the second Gulf War. He got hit with an IED. He's a total wreck. It messed him up pretty bad.
Oh, wow.
So salute to all the veterans out there today.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you.
Thank you for
making
everything.
This country what it is,
Absolutely, 100%.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I don't know. We could talk about either sales, sobriety.
Or spirituality.
Or
all three.
Yeah.
What was your first sales job?
Yeah. Like real job or?
I mean,
when I was a kid.
You sold newspapers, right? Or something?
No. When I was a kid, we lived on a golf course. So, back in the 80s, if you wanted money, mom and dad didn't really.
There was no GoFundMe back in the 80s.
And there's no, can I borrow $20? That was just an instant no. So we had to go out and make it ourselves. So we lived on a golf course. And we would just go look for golf balls, find them. And at the end of the street, when we're on private property, not the golf course property, as the guys were driving by, we would sell them golf balls. We'd have Vest soda that we bought for 5 cents a piece, selling it for 25. So, yeah.
So you were hustling at a young
We were
age.
hustling, man. We needed to buy some fireworks and
You were resourceful.
baseball cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember having like a lemonade stand here and there, doing little things like that.
Sure.
My first sales job, so I worked in restaurants right out of high school,
Okay.
which that translates well to sales jobs, I feel like, because there's a customer service aspect to both.
Mm-hmm.
But my first sales job, I got in the newspaper. This is back in the day when you'd look in the ads, right, to find a job. And these guys were selling meat, seafood, and chicken door to door. And my dad, he's like, yeah, just go check it out. And, went down there, and it was a nightmare. It was one guy fell and hit his head. They were chasing him around with water balloons, throwing water balloons at him, and he slipped and fell and hit his head. And they were like, just get up, man, you're okay. And I'm standing there like, what in the world is going on? It was just so
So the homeowners were throwing water balloons?
No. Excuse me, let me back up. So at the place before we went out for the day, because everybody had a little red and white truck, and then you'd go on your route for the day, and then you'd come back to the office. So this was, I don't know if this was hype up time for the crew or what it was, but it was just this dude literally broke his head on the floor, and then they were like, all right, get out of there, go out and work, sell some steaks.
Nice little pep talk. Huh?
So we drove to Sierra Vista. That was the territory. and the guy, I'm 18, 20 years old, and I can remember looking at this guy like, there's something wrong with this guy. He seems a little off.
Yeah.
And I actually sold something that day. I sold some steaks to this older couple in Sierra Vista, and it was cool, but I felt bad. I felt like, I don't know why, I just didn't feel real good about it. I had to go get the other guy, bring him back. And we drove home that night, and that was it for me. I didn't go back. I didn't really feel, I was watching the guy, and he was BSing people, and he wasn't being real honest.
Sure.
And that really wasn't my thing. So
good for you.
yeah. So one day in that kind of cut my teeth in door-to-door sales, but I was good at it. I mean, I got a sale.
Yeah.
And then I sold educational books door to door starting in 2000, right before 9/11. So the summer of 01, I think, was my first summer. And we went to Minnesota, and that was an incredible experience. And I always tell people, and I think I might have shared this with you, that there's really no college class that you can replicate that kind of experience, dealing with people, dealing with rejection, learning some resiliency and all these cool things. And it was amazing because I had never been out of Tucson. It was probably for you when you moved out here from Missouri, right?
Sure.
It's just our first experience away from where we grew up, and seeing how people lived out there. I'm in BFE, southern Minnesota, by the Iowa border. There's a town called Austin, Minnesota, and they have a week-long spam festival because that's where the spam factory is. So that was interesting to see that. And I was selling to farmers who were, hog farmers, or they were growing crops or whatever they were growing. And I'll never forget my first customer. He had sausage fingers because he worked in the fields all day. Mm-hmm. I shook this man's hand, and he was like, had the strongest grip I had.
Instant intimidation.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And they were raising their granddaughter. And the products that we had ranged in price from $20, $30 up to $500, the books and the software. And, I was basically showing them the least expensive product. I think I went through everything. She was young. This made the most sense for them. But it was like, they said yes, but it was like an hour ordeal because I didn't know how to close.
Sure.
And maybe they just wanted to help me. I don't know. But maybe they didn't have a lot of money. I don't know how, what their financial situation was. So maybe it was a big purchase for them. I don't know. But it was an incredible experience. I took pictures with them because I had a little Polaroid camera with me. And it was just, I learned so much from that first sale, and it gave me confidence. And then, I won the trip to Cancun that summer because I ended up doing really well. So the first 3 weeks were an absolute struggle. And I can remember calling my dad. I ran out of money. I was like, hey, I want to come home. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, if you want to do that, I support you, but I also, maybe you should stick it out. Either way, I support you. Yeah. And it was like, it just took the weight off my shoulders because I don't know what I was expecting him to say. But, I just manned up and I said, no, I'm not quitting.
How old were you?
At that time, I was 20.
Okay.
19 or 20. Yeah. But I had never left home, and I had never had this kind of responsibility because we were responsible for ourselves every single day. It's like with your business. If you don't get up off your behind, you're not selling any product when you're early on, right? If you don't have the customer base already. So they would say, okay, this is your territory. Here's a map. Because back then we actually used physical maps. Mm-hmm. And I would go through and mark off in marker like where I had been. And yeah. And so anyways, it was such a great experience. People would invite you in for dinners. I'm sure you've had customers that you've dealt with personally, and they're like, hey, why don't we go out to dinner? Why don't you come over for dinner? And it's just such an intimate experience that people invite you into their lives, and it really makes you feel good and stuff. So.
Well, you've done well if that's the case. If they trust you.
Yeah.
And, you're part of the family at that point.
That was another really eye-opening thing, too, was it gave me a lot of confidence because I knock on, let's say, a mom, her husband's at work, and she's got 3 kids inside. And she's like, yeah, come on in. And I'm like, growing up in Tucson and seeing some of the stuff that I had seen, it was like, what can happen.
And Midwest living's a little bit different.
That level of trust and that level of acceptance and that level of like, yeah, you know what, I can, in sales, I'm sure you've heard this, people size you up in the first 30 seconds. Yeah. They kind of make a decision about you pretty quickly.
Yep.
And so the way I would stand, my posture, the way my voice inflection, all these different things that I learned, to have people bring their guard down, essentially.
I think there's so many insecurities that we have, when we're first starting out, because we're young, and right there we're like, we're not as wise as some of the people that we're trying to sell. We're selling out of our pocketbooks. Mm-hmm. We're trying to sell. Like I was selling financial plans for American Express in the late '90s. It was my first real job, and we would get these leads, and it was 1,000 leads when we first got hired on. And so we just cold called all day long. And our goal was to set up an appointment. We had to set up 20 appointments a week, hoping that 10 showed and 5 would buy.
Close 5?
Yeah, close 5.
Were you the closer as well, or just the appointment setter?
At first, they had a pretty good structure. At first, it was just make the appointment. And then once we made the appointment, then they would bring one of the managers in there, and we would just sit in.
Okay.
And the manager they had this, the acronym was PMM script. So they had this script that we had to memorize.
You still know it?
No. But we memorized it. And then I think probably after our 5th appointment, where, they would sit in, but we would at that point, start it.
Yeah.
And they would help close it.
Kind of shadow the appointment.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I had a fantastic manager. His name is Dave Elliott. I think he's somewhere in Utah now. But he was just smooth. Looked great. he played the role. He was he was just a great salesman. And, I learned a lot from that guy.
So he was willing to show you what he had learned and how he did things. And,
yeah. I mean, he just just different pointers that, hey, next time say it this way, say it that way.
But he also probably saw that you were teachable and coachable too, because, those are a couple things that you have to be successful.
Yeah.
Right. Because, going back to the book selling deal, that first summer we're in Nashville because Nashville was the headquarters for this company. And I can remember some of the guys were, on cloud nine, like, yeah, we're going to crush it this summer. Kind of a little delusional looking back on it because those guys quit. And me, embarrassing to say, but I literally started tearing up because I knew the gravity of what I was about to go do.
Yeah.
I knew how hard it was going to be because getting told no 30 to 50 times a day to get 3 or 4 yeses or 5 yeses. And I got better over time, but I kind of knew what the undertaking was going to be. Yeah. So I was prepared, and I was teachable and coachable. I took all the suggestions. So what I've seen over the years in sales, and I'm sure you have in some of maybe the other agents or some people that you've worked with over the years, if you go into it with beating on your chest thinking you know everything, you're not going to have the kind of success that you could potentially have if you're open to hearing other ways of doing things.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest is just asking the questions, finding out as much as you can about your potential client. I mean, at least that is in the situation, not like right now. We have a large array of products. What do they need? Right. So, I mean, you really got to explain it. And I think that's the problem with the insurance agent industry today is that people are just told this is what you need. And when I sit down and ask them, how did you get these liability limits? They're like, I don't know. And then, you're telling them, listen, we need to protect everything that you have worked for. You have 25, 50, and you're telling me you're worth $1 million. What that means is if you get into an accident, we're only going to cover you for $25,000. You got to pay the rest.
Right.
So just, you have to ask those questions and be comfortable asking them, what are you worth? Add up all, when you add up all your assets, subtract your liabilities, that's your net worth. That's what I have to protect at the end of the day. Because the last thing I want is for you to get into an accident, you get serve some paperwork from an attorney, and they're wanting to go after everything.
Because somebody didn't do their due diligence.
So if I have that number, or if I'm well above that number, you're going to get sleep at night because we've already planned for that. That's what insurance is.
And so it sounds like it's also about educating them, but being confident in what you're doing and asking for the business that it might be uncomfortable for other people, and that's why they're in that position to begin with.
Yeah.
Right, with another company. They want to sell the business, but they're not willing to actually cover them to the extent that they need to be covered.
They're just selling a policy. And they're just saying, if they're paying, they'll ask somebody, what are you paying every 6 months? Well, I'm paying $500. And, they'll come in at $400 with lower limits, and, the person's kind of like, oh, great, I'm paying less money. And, the other sad thing about it is people are so concerned about their vehicle. They want to make sure their vehicle is protected, that it's covered, their $40,000, $50,000 vehicle. But if you sit down with them and you're like, how much do you make a year? I make $150,000, $200,000. That's what you got to protect. The vehicle, we have to protect the vehicle, but we have to protect you. We have to protect the way you live your life. We have to protect how you accumulated your assets because we don't want anything to happen. And in this society today, everybody's looking for a quick out, quick, easy buck.
Yeah. At one time I was going to put a magnet or something on my truck advertising what I did at the time. And I got some feedback. They're like, you don't want to do that because somebody will look to hit you because they think you got money because you have a business or something like that.
Yeah.
It's funny because Melissa, my fiance's dad, she just went to Florida. And her dad, over the years, there's a term for this, and I don't know what it is, but he's like Sue happy. Like he likes to, and it's. I don't know if she'd be comfortable with me saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. He was in the hospital.
Melissa.
he was in the hospital recently because he has this thing where he'll take advantage of the Florida laws are, I guess, looser or whatever. So there's people out there that are looking to capitalize and take advantage of situations, right? Like think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Well, you look at all the people that are on the corners, the homeless with a sign.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a client that was approaching the stoplight, and some guy slipped that was holding a sign and got hit, barely got hit, wasn't harmed. You know, and the guy got an attorney, and it was a quick $50,000 payout from my company, you know, and then the poor man got canceled at the next renewal. So, you know, and he's on a fixed income, you know, he's in this, I think late 70s. I'm not sure what I just said, but late 70s, great guy, you know, but now he can't afford car insurance.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because there's always people out there to try to make a quick buck off you.
Yeah. So like as a new client, what process do you or the ladies at your office walk people through? Like what would they expect to come in and like do a little quick audit of what they assets?
We'll look at, you know, basically we'll look at what they currently have. And I'll ask them, you know, how did you get this number? Do you know what this means? And, you know, you probably get like a 50-50 response. And so I'll just tell them, listen, all this other stuff is just bells and whistles that'll make life easy for you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is all I care about, your liability, because this protects you. And so we just go into, you know, add up your assets, subtract your liabilities. That's your net worth.
And do most people like understand that process already? Or are you having to like educate or re-educate people on this is how we do it here at my agency?
No, I mean, I just tell them, listen, I work for you.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I just want to make sure you're paying for what you need and that you're covered. I mean, that's what insurance is.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's just annoyed with it, as long as I had the conversation with it, I'll make notes that say, hey, they weren't willing to go into the process. This is what they wanted. Fine.
Yeah.
You know, I'm protecting myself because I try to do my job.
Right.
But
that makes sense, yeah.
They just they didn't have the time. They didn't have the time or the patience to go through the process. And the process is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I mean, yeah, sometimes you got to explain what an asset is.
Yeah.
You know, you got to tell them, you know, your checking account, your savings, your 401k.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of people have trust set up too. So, you know, that's a different entity that we really don't have to get into. But honestly, anybody in there that's got a well-paying job, that's accumulated some assets, they need an umbrella.
Yeah.
You just need that protection. And when you have it, when you're protected, and God forbid if something happens, you're not concerned about it. Like, you've done your job, they're happy, you know, they're out of it. They're emotionally checked out because they know they're okay, they're taken care of.
It's one less stressor.
Oh, gosh, yes. But, you know, if you don't have that, and I've had a lot of clients over the years, no, I just want the minimums.
And have you ever had somebody come back and try and say this, that, and the other, you didn't tell me this or that? Okay, that's good.
No,
that's good.
No,
yeah.
No. I mean, we'll we go through it pretty.
But you've got your notes anyways to back up the information you provide.
Oh, you have to, yeah, because that's the first thing. If somebody does say something and they file a lawsuit, my company's going to go, please send over your notes.
Right.
You know, and I'm not the most organized, you know, super ADD. Yeah. Everything's written down, so I've got to do it twice as hard, you know, twice as much. I got to put it in the system and all that other stuff, or I'll just give it to one of the ladies and say, hey, can you take care of this?
Yeah. Well, everybody has strengths and weaknesses. I think we're one and the same. I have like 8 notebooks at my desk at my house of stuff that notes written in it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like mad scientist type stuff. That's funny. So,
but I mean, it took a while to get that process. I mean, you know, I think in college I worked for MCI it was great. It was like from 5:30 to 10.
What's MCI?
It was the long distance phone company back in the day. So way back in the day when you had landlines, you just tried to sell long distance coverage that was cheap. And, you know, it was fun. It was a good environment. You know, you're just on the phones. But I mean, there was a total burnout after a couple of years. You're just...
The big, so I did door-to-door book sales, and that was in person. I also have done a little bit of phone sales through the dealership, through other areas. Actually, I sold auto glass over the phone.
Oh,
a little bit here and there.
Wow.
Yeah. So
for
it's a whole
corporate company?
The smaller company here in town.
Okay.
And I used to be at the car washes as well.
Oh, you're that guy.
I was that guy.
There's a ding.
I was that guy.
We could take care of this right now.
I actually sold like 5 or 6 windshields in one day, and they loved me. but I kept relapsing and they kept giving me chances. It was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Because they saw that I had some talent and that I could do the job. But unfortunately I couldn't stay sober. So but the phone sales is a whole different animal, because if you're in person, there's that first 30 seconds where people will judge you. If they see you, if you're dressed sharp, if you're well-spoken, if you're standing in a way that's not intimidating, it's easier to judge that situation. Sure. Over the phone. You got to rely on your voice and your energy, right? And you have to have like an invincible mindset, because if you go into the call, and that goes for in person too. What I realized is that if I'm already doubting that this person maybe doesn't want to talk to me, or poor me for whatever reasons, I haven't had a sale in 10 hours. Yeah. Whatever that is, you're bringing that bad energy into it, and you're gonna get punched in the face, basically, right?
I mean, you can sit there and try to disguise your voice as much as you want. I mean, there's times where I was in a slump, didn't sell anything for a couple of days, and they're like, "What's wrong with you? What's going on?" And it's in my head.
It's in your head. We're expecting to do bad. We have this negative self-talk. So of course the universe, is gonna give us that.
Oh, your subconscious is just it's working on your ego's tearing you apart, and you're like trying to hide it, but it's not reflected on the other end.
Those are character building days.
Absolutely, man.
I can remember going a couple days not selling anything, and this is gonna sound pretty crazy, but I'm driving in Minnesota. I think it was my first summer, and I see a bunch of cows in the field. And I literally thought to myself, man, I wish I'd rather be that cow right now than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Like, how stupid is that, though?
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, I remember when I first started with Amex, it was like I'm meeting with these people and we're doing a financial plan. We're going over their retirement goals and their education goals for their kids. We're planning for funeral expenses, insurance needs. We're just covering the whole basis. And I remember I sat down with this guy and he's making $60,000 a year. And I was like, gosh, I wish I could do that. I wish I was making that. He seemed so happy, and it was just an easy check for him. And, it was consistent. And here I was on straight commissions and no check, no paycheck unless I sold something. So yeah, it's funny how your perception changes from where you first start, and then as you grow as in your business, in your sales process. 60,000. I'd be pretty unhappy with that now.
Right.
Not saying there's anything wrong with it.
No, absolutely. It's funny too that you mentioned like people that they don't have 15 minutes to give you, right? Because they're too busy. Yeah. And those are usually the people that earn about $60,000 a year that think that their time's more important than that's what I noticed working at the dealership, is that, you can make a really good living at the dealership, but you'd have these people come in that were, to them, they were killing it and crushing it. Some doctors, some lawyers and stuff like that.
Who was the easiest client to sell? Was it the doctor or the attorney, or was it the, just the middle income household, or was there?
Well, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show last week or the first week, or maybe I haven't, but there was a phrase that I really think rings true. Mm-hmm. And it was that the happiest customer pays the most money, and the one that nickels and dimes you to death is going to be the biggest pain in the butt you'll ever have. They're never going to be happy.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily like a certain profession. It was the people that, yes, they valued their time, but they also valued your time. And if you made that connection, and if you built a little rapport, and you were just straight up with people, mm-hmm. It would be an easy process, and you just had an experience at a dealership where you guys bought a car.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, hey, listen, this is what I'm willing to pay.
Yeah.
And so like, I liked that. I don't need to make all the money in the world on a sale. I just want to get a sale.
That's it.
Because I know that the next one will be right behind it, and mm-hmm. I'm building momentum. And if I start worrying about how much I'm making, I'm already shooting myself in the foot. And when I went door to door, what I noticed is people sense fear just like dogs sense fear.
Yeah.
And if you haven't sold something for 10 hours or 10 days or whatever, and people are going to see that, they're going to, you're hungry to make some money.
Yeah.
But when you're living abundantly, when you're constantly getting deals because you could care less about the money you're making, you're focusing on treating the customer a certain way, getting the sale, and potentially getting some referral and repeat business from that, things just flow better, I think.
Did you ever change your personality? Like if you came in, you approach a potential client. I think they had the four personality types. They had the driver, the straight to the point guy. He's not going to beat around the bush. He just wants the facts. Time is important. And then you had the expressive person who was just, I think I'm more of an expressive person. They're just real talkative, hands up in the air, Then you had the amiable people who were just, the safety. The safe, they wanted everything safe. And then you had the analytic was just, they'd beat you to death over the numbers.
Yeah. And real quick, just while we have it here, thank you, Tony, for putting my website up there. If you guys need any help with getting sober, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, salesperson who is talented but it's struggling with addiction, check out my website. You can schedule a 45-minute call on there. I'd love to talk to you and see if there's an area that I could help you in. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So thank
Especially
you.
If you need help with sales.
Yeah.
Give Mike a call.
Yeah. So
Coach Mike.
So these different people, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but
personality types.
Have you ever bought something from somebody just because you like their energy? And they like,
all the time.
That's me, dude.
All the time.
Yeah. I might not even totally like the product, but if I resonate with the person, if I'm like, they're doing a great job, if that's the type of salesperson that I feel like I would be, I'm like, yeah, I want to support that. So the expressive, the energy, I bring energy all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people like. But then there are those people that are super hard to read. I worked at a different dealership where they were all Raytheon employees that were buying vehicles, and they're all analytical people. And that's a whole different sale because you're not selling to their emotions. You're selling, to logic and reason. And So, what I did do, and just going a step back, like you learned from this gentleman who's in Utah now or whatnot. What was his name?
Dave Elliott.
Okay. So I learned from certain people too. But what I learned, not only what they showed me, because I would follow them certain days, right? You tag along. If you're in a slump, you're going to tag along with somebody listening on some calls and things like that. The biggest thing that I learned was, yes, I can use what they're teaching, but I have to make it my own. I can't do it like they do it.
Yeah.
Because then it's just going to be inauthentic. It's not going to sound
correct.
Right. So I kind of just took everything as it came. I played it by ear. I was really pretty pliable when it came to how I would deal with people. Number one, I want to have fun with people regardless. I want to take the pressure off. When I was doing the door-to-door book sales, I had a saying that I would tell people. It was part of my pitch. And I had this, looking back on it, it was like a 2 or 3 page pitch that I ended up memorizing. And then I tweaked it. I had the guidelines, I had the frame for it, and then I made it my own. And part of what I would say was, look, if you guys like it, great. But if you don't, that's totally fine too. Just that little, takes the pressure off. So I would tell my customers all the time, I want to sell you something today. But at the end of the day too, I don't want to piss you off and have you not come back. So if it doesn't work out today, let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, that just takes off the heat, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, with based on what you said, it's got to be your own. I would always write out a script for my employees when we were doing the cold calling.
Okay.
I'd write it out just so they can memorize it, have something, but then, they need to tweak it to their own personality.
Right. You want to cover some key points and make sure you're saying certain things.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just that's how I learned is, they gave us this really fantastic script that was 10 pages long, and we memorized it. And we practiced over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of put in your personality and you do the small tweaks to make it sound like you.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you ever have a client where you guys just totally, just chatted it up, had just great conversation flowing to the point where they didn't even really need to hear a pitch? They were just sold on.
Oh gosh, those are the worst appointments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to go to people's houses and sell life policies or whatever at the time. And, it was the older crowd, maybe a guy that's by himself and he's in his 60s or whatever. And you're there for 3 hours. You're having, you're going to go have lunch. And it's okay, you going to buy this or what?
Right.
Well, let me think about it. And that's like 3 hours of your day. And you're just like, total rookie mistake.
Yeah.
But, we're having fun. You're just learning. You got to learn. And you got to go through those processes.
Those are key for
Absolutely.
learning what to do the next time, because the next time you can ask a couple trial closes or do some things to where you get a little better understanding of the readiness of the client, right?
And you typically you get so good at making calls that if that person, you make the appointment with that person, you kind of know if they're going to buy.
Right.
You really figure out your closing numbers, and you get really good at it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
That's within everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, sales is just having a conversation with somebody,
Connecting with people.
listen to what they need,
Yeah.
and tell them that, whether you can or can't help them.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
It's not, I went to the meetings. I think you said you went to Saturday, you went to the deal at the convention
TCC.
center.
Yeah. Life Surge.
Yeah. And I went to one of those way back in the day. You had Zig Ziglar, and you had all these professional salesmen.
you went
fantastic.
to Zig
Oh,
Ziglar?
gosh.
Yeah. I bet that was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. The guys just,
Where do
they
I
have
sign?
all their
Where do I
products.
sign?
Yeah, they have all their products at the end of their speech. You're like, I'm going to buy that. And by the time you leave, you're out thousands of dollars because you bought all these
Yeah.
plans from these expert salesmen.
Yeah.
But I think it's that easy.
Yeah.
When we're selling life insurance back in the day, that was the biggest thing because, you really don't need it, So that was just trying to have that conversation was always tough. And the biggest obstacle I had was selling a big policy, asking for big money, because I was just a kid, making maybe $30,000 a year at the time, and I'm asking somebody to buy a $2,000 a month life insurance policy. So that's, one of the biggest things. I was selling out of my pocketbook. Well, that's a lot of money. I can't afford that. So I'm not going to ask him to pay for that.
You know what? Now that you mentioned that again, no, that makes total sense. And I think even in the beginning for me with selling vehicles, selling a $100,000, vehicle, you're like, because I mean, for me coming into that job, frankly, I hadn't had, really good success. I had success, but it wasn't consistent success. I was coming off the street. I was living this certain way. So it was like, gosh, dang, $1,200 payment. Yeesh.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have the confidence. But then, a year or two in, it's like $1,500 payment. There you go.
Yeah.
You're not even blinking.
Yeah.
So that makes total sense. Yeah.
And I think now, just with the internet and with, at least in my industry, the biggest selling point is just selling service, after the sale. We're going to bring you on, but our biggest goal is to keep you as a client. And, we're not like Progressive. We're not like Geico. They may be a little cheaper.
Right.
But
You
when
don't get
something
that personal
happens,
touch.
something happens, guess what? You're on the phone dealing with an 800 person operator on the other side. Whereas here, just come to the office. We're here. We'll hold your hand through it.
Yeah.
So service is a big thing that people, if you think about all the captive agents back in the day, before the Geico and the Progressive came on board, that's basically what it was. You bought insurance from your local person that was close to your house.
Yeah.
And then, the industry itself has changed. So people still value that. They want that local personality. They want that team of people that they could pick up the phone, get a hold of you right there, and not on hold for 20 minutes. There's a lot of value in that. And I think that's what people still want. A good number of people, they'll try the 800 numbers and they'll try, save $1, but when something happens, they're the first ones that are going to switch over.
Well, and it's funny you say that because the car industry, a lot of people are saying it's going to go to where you just order it online and it's delivered or you pick it up.
Like Carvana?
Yeah. And there's other models like Hyundai, I think, is going in that direction a little bit. Like you can actually buy a Hyundai on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, on Amazon Prime.
Oh, wow.
If I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So at any rate, For me, that would never work. I want to go and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I don't want to order, I don't order jeans online. I want to go try them on at the store. I want to, have the experience and things like that. So, with AI and all this stuff saying it's going to take over everything. I mean, I don't think salespeople, I think that's a solid career that's going to be around for a long time.
Sure.
Because you can't have a robot or you can't have a program, have compassion and have empathy for people and have the charisma that salespeople actually have to close deals, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, I think to bring the sobriety piece into this, I think addicts are like natural born salespeople in a lot of ways. They make great salespeople. And I just know for me, I toyed with it with drugs and alcohol before I sold books door to door.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that book selling door to door, when you talk to somebody or even at the dealership, when they're totally closed off, when they're frowning, like they couldn't have a bigger frown on their face, and you just say something that lights them up, and then they're opened up, and then, you close the deal. And yes, it was tough, but that is a high in of its own.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a fantastic feeling.
It's a great feeling.
And it's free, or excuse me, it's not free, but it's not hurting you. And so that really is the appeal for me. In sobriety is getting those feelings, talking to people, connecting with people, making people smile and laugh, and getting them out of their comfort zone.
So let me ask you this. After you made that sale, that hard sale, how easy was it to make another one right after it?
Oh, man, you're on fire. You're just about 7 years ago, I was selling solar here in Tucson, in Star Valley. Star Valley's out by the casino.
Yeah.
And I went out one day, I was just setting appointments, and I set 9 appointments in 3 hours. And the first one, I think it was the first door I knocked on. She said yes. And then it was just like, it was on. I mean, I was and I was like unstoppable. And I'm on fire. I get like that. Like I'm very, I like to ride the waves, and then, you're going to have your low points. But for the majority of the time, if you get a sale, as you know, it's so much easier
just
to get
keep
that
going.
next one.
Don't take a break. Just keep going.
Just keep going.
Feed your hot hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. I just heard somebody talking about that recently, and I think we were talking about that too. I mean, in the first episode,
we were.
People get a big deal, and then they want to take their foot off the gas. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think those people shouldn't be in sales,
Exactly.
But on the same hand, like on a sales floor, it's nice to have lazy people because you're going to get more of the piece of the pie because you're willing to hustle and do what it takes to talk to the people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And be alert and see deals that other people are missing and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if everybody was crushing it, it would be a little more competitive, but you're always going to have, a combination of, I'm sure that's the same thing with agents. It's interesting that you said you have the rules like a mile distance. Did you tell me that?
Yeah. Yeah, we have this unwritten rule where we try to stay a mile away from another competing local State Farm agent.
Okay.
And so it's just kind of a handshake deal.
And purely the proximity, it has nothing to do with clients on this block or that block, or
no, I think it's more like zip code.
Okay.
If you look at Oro Valley, there's tons of agents up there because of the growth over the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. But if you look in 85705, one of the biggest zip codes in Tucson, I don't think there's one agent in that zip code.
Wow. Which zip code is that?
85705, which I think that's going to be
like Midtown or?
No, that's going to be like south of River Road, Flowing Wells District.
Okay.
Just where Tucson Mall is.
Well, I think we know where we're opening a new State Farm agency then.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right. They've been trying for years.
Yeah.
But, I was, where I'm located at, I share an office with another agent. So we just have an understanding. But I think, the rule was just mainly because if you're marketing a lot in a zip code, you just don't want to get into competing with another agent in that zip code. So
the door-to-door
there's
books,
tons of business.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is I learned this too in the door-to-door book sales, and it was like it is a spiritual way to look at things. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but there's enough business to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just like the meditations that I do, I know you've got into the meditations, and I think it's a Joe Dispenza one, where he talks about, I mean, look around you, the amount of trees, the amount of grass, the amount of gravel, the amount of birds. Like, God has an abundance of everything on this earth.
Correct.
So how can you sit there and say, I don't have enough, or I don't have enough prospects, or I don't have, there's an energy to feeling like you don't have enough, a lack energy.
Mm-hmm.
There's an energy to abundance where you're like, no, there's enough for everyone to go around.
Yeah.
And if this guy snaked me out of a deal, that's fine. I'm not going to let that bother me. I'm going to live in the present moment, and I'm going to go try and find another deal.
Just got to do the right thing. I mean, there's, especially with new people starting out, if somebody called me up and just said, hey, can we sit down and have lunch?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You want everybody to do well, because that's great for the company as a whole if all their agents are doing well. And really that's what it's about. And if everybody's doing right for the client, then it's just more growth for the company.
Absolutely. But some people don't see it that way. I think the people that don't see it that way are the ones that are resistant to sales, or say, oh, I don't like sales, or it didn't work for me because this, that, and the other reason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're honest with yourself, you didn't put in the work, and you kind of had a crappy mindset about it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You just got to do the right thing. I mean, the bottom line, those people will weed out. Yes, you have a lot of people that are very selfish, they're competing with you, and so be it. They'll steal your clients.
And they're probably going to badmouth you at some point.
Whatever. If that's what they got to do, that's what they got to do. But it all comes around.
Yep.
They don't make it.
Yeah.
Or they eventually just realize, as they steal. That's the biggest thing with State Farm agents is, you'll have different clients that want to move to you just because of whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, just stay with your current agent, give them a shot.
Yeah.
If it's somebody that's related to one of the ladies, if it's a, close family friend, then you just have that conversation with the other agent.
Mm-hmm.
Just explain it to them. Because you don't want to have anybody upset.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just makes it a long-term, it's a long-term mess.
Yeah.
So
what else should we talk about?
So who are you looking for?
For clients?
Yes.
So
who's your ideal client?
My ideal client is a business owner, an entrepreneur, a sales professional who is like me, who, is talented, who has potential, but, there's something holding them back. An addiction that's holding them back, a disconnection that's holding them back. And, a lot of, when I say talented, I say, these people are probably making a really good living already.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've seen and what I've experienced is it doesn't matter how much money you're making. If your personal life, your spiritual life is crap and you're just dying inside,
Absolutely.
A $200,000 a year job, $500,000 a year job, for what? Like, where does that actually lead to joy in your life or fulfillment in your life?
That's kind of why I reached out to you. I really love my job, and I have a lot of gratitude for everybody that's helped me to get there. The company that I work for, my clients, my team, like I've said in the first episode. And, you get to a point where you're like, all right, what else?
Yeah.
What's my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And I think looking back, it was more of a spiritual disconnect that I was having.
Mm-hmm.
And, touching base with you, meeting with you a couple times a week and getting on track on that spiritual level, that sobriety level.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel fantastic.
And if you don't mind sharing, I think this is important because you said at one point you got a really nice bonus one, probably more than once, but one particular time where you said, you thought it was going to be a certain way.
Oh yeah.
And then the feeling wore off after however long, right?
Yeah. No.
So then it's kind of like, well, what's next?
Correct. You set those income goals for yourself and you start hitting them and it's like, okay, now I can put more money away for retirement. All right. Great. Now, the kids could go, they can have a car, you can provide better
right.
for your family. You can, plan more for your retirement, but you're still having like, is this it? Great. So this is all about me. There was just a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I love what I do. But I wanted something more more on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
I want to help people. I want to make a difference in their lives. I mean, I've had people that helped me throughout my whole career, my whole life, that have impacted me. And again, I wouldn't be here without those people. So being able to provide that same support for someone else is fantastic, but not knowing how to do it. So I think it's great, connecting with somebody that has been through it all, like yourself, the spiritual level, the sobriety level, the sales history.
Yeah.
It's a great starting point. And again, my path is a lot more clear today than it was.
Yeah.
And I feel a heck of a lot better, because of the sobriety, because of the spirituality.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know you a whole lot before. Your son passed away. I think we spoke on the phone once.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can only guess in what you've explained to me, but I personally see that you're a different person, that you're taking different action, that you're showing up differently for your employees, for your family, for yourself.
Yeah, exactly, for yourself.
And, that was my experience was, I had the sales jobs. I had all this talent. People would say, oh, you have potential. But I was spiritually bankrupt. I was spiritually sick. And I was just living this terrible life where I couldn't have, first of all, I wasn't employable for the most part at all anyways, especially towards the end of my addiction and stuff like that. But what I found was developing a recovery foundation of complete abstinence from drugs and alcohol. First of all, it gave me clarity. It gave me focus. I showed up differently. I was treated differently by other people. And I mentioned this before, a lot of the struggle that you can wind up having is that not everybody wants you to get sober, family, friends, things like that, because you're not as manipulatable at that point. So I approach things differently, relationships with people. I didn't take what I maybe deemed as disrespect the same way, because when I was in my addiction or when I was drinking and using, it was easy just to brush something off. Yeah. And maybe I would hold on to it like a resentment, and that would fuel my addiction even more. But, there's certain things that allow you to show up differently when you develop this foundation. And then ultimately getting sober, it was kind of like, okay, well, let me find out about life. Like what's real, what's not. Like my life was turned upside down. So I started researching all these spiritual topics, the YouTube videos, the books. And one of the biggest things that I found was that pretty much everything has the similar message.
Yeah, 100%.
Surrounding, doing right by people, making amends to people, surrendering. Surrender is a huge word. And surrender for a salesperson or a business owner, an entrepreneur it's not like a friendly word for those folks, right? Yeah. So surrendering to life and letting life play out the way it will, and me not having to have 100% control of everything. And don't get me wrong, I take back control of my life all the time. And typically those are when I get really bad results. Yeah. But when I can show up in a disciplined way, but I can surrender my life to God, then my life flows. And I always knew when I was my most spiritual, because I was crushing it in sales, because I was not in judgment. I was not in fear. I was not in lack. I was not in jealousy. I wasn't like, that guy's selling twice as much as me. Why? What's going on? I wasn't paying attention to none of that. I had my little blinders on. I was in my present moment zone, and I was asking a lot of questions to customers, and I was getting to know people, and I was present. And so part of the addiction thing is, yes, you might be crushing it in sales, or maybe you're struggling. But if you can't sit there with your customer, with your client on the phone, in person, or whatever, and truly be present and listen and show them that you care and you do all these things that people are going to notice, then you're missing business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I've talked to some people that business has gone out of business because the owner was, drinking too much or doing this or doing that. So, I mean, I know it's a problem. It
is a problem. I mean, I think some business owners, once they start getting that taste of success, then they just kind of sit back a little bit. They don't show up like they used to. a little bit more demanding, maybe micromanage a little more when they start seeing numbers dropping.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, it's a hard job.
Yeah.
The sobriety, it's tough.
Yeah, and then the stress, right? I mean,
Yeah.
over the years, I think we've all dealt with certain amounts of stress, and that rears its head in ugly ways as well.
Yeah,
and you can maybe be unfair to your family, to your employees, to people around you in the community. And ultimately, I think this is important to me because living on the streets, having the story that I had, I feel like if a business owner or somebody who has a high impact in the community, like a salesperson or an entrepreneur, because they're typically the highest earners, if they can be on this level, they can create an impact in their ecozone, in their communities, with their families, and then it kind of domino effects from there. So,
you ever think about speaking with teams?
Yeah,
like sales teams.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Going there and motivate, change the energy.
I used to live in a van down by the river. No, absolutely. Yeah, that would be amazing. I was thinking that skit.
Yeah, I did too.
No, absolutely. So part of the Life Surgeon, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but Ed Milet was there and he spoke, and I really got a lot out of what he shared.
Okay.
The biggest thing that I got out of it is that I could do that.
Yeah.
That I could do that I have a story to tell, that, because he touched on a bunch of topics, and I didn't stay for Tim Tebow at the end because this is an all day affair. It was just super long and stuff. But I really, and I don't mean that in like a boastful way. It's just that the story that he shared, his dad was an alcoholic. He passed away. His dad got sober as he got older and would go to prisons and bring meetings into prisons, and he, it was his hero. And he has a book, One More Day, or one more something, right? But this whole time he's up there, and he did a 20-minute motivational at the end where he just kept harping on these points and stuff. And I was like,
it resonated.
It resonated, but I was like, I can do that. I think I would, have
absolutely,
because we didn't pray today. Now that I think about it. We should
pray afterwards.
We'll pray afterwards.
Absolutely.
But when I go into something like that and I have really good intentions, actually I did pray this morning. And so my prayer typically is that we can impact just one person. That's all I care about.
That's it.
If one person can hear a message of hope, of resiliency, of resurrection, of, hey, facing challenges and getting through those challenges, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
And that way I don't have to overwhelm myself. This isn't bigger than me. This is just me sharing a message of my journey and how other people can benefit from
one day at a time.
And same for you. I mean, you're new in this recovery walk. We're learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've probably learned as much from you that you've learned from me.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate that.
And John that was here last week, he told me that early on. He's like, hey, this is a reciprocal deal here.
Yeah.
We're going to learn from each other. And I really respected that quite a bit. I mean,
he was great. John was awesome.
Yeah. I almost called him this morning and said, hey, come on back down.
He'd have been all over it.
Yeah, he can talk too.
That. Yeah, he can.
Yeah.
But he's got a great message, and that's just the bottom line. If we can make a difference in one person's life, fantastic. We've done our job.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you've made a great difference in me over the last 3 months. I'm pumped. I love going to work. I just like how I feel. I like my new routine that I have every day.
What is your new routine in the morning?
It's a 30 to 45 minute meditation. Instead of just getting the bag ready and going to the gym, I'm meditating. I'm saying my praises. That's how I'm going to start the day. That's how the energy is going to begin. And then if I have time to work out around noon or 1, I'll hit the gym.
Yeah.
But it's not the first thing. It's not how I'm going to start rushing, being in a hurry.
Yeah.
All pumped up. I just kind of like, this is a more gentle, a more easy road.
Yeah.
And I just like how I feel. I mean, it's fantastic.
And if people want to find you, if people want to, inquire about their policies, their coverages, where can they get you at?
www.baderagency.com.
Okay.
BADER.
And if they want to swing by the office, you're at First and River.
First and River. We're south of River Road. We're north of Wetmore on the west side, 4627.
And you typically have fresh cookies right in the front foyer there.
Oh yeah.
When people walk
in.
in.
Yeah, bottled water, all that stuff. So
thank you, Mike.
Thanks again, buddy.